Evelyn Carter was sitting in the corner of the medical clinic, flipping through an old magazine she wasn't really reading. At 72, doctor visits felt more like routine than necessity. She was still lost in her thoughts when her cell phone rang. It was her only daughter, Melissa. "Mom," Melissa said sharply, her tone clipped and emotionless. "Brian and I are leaving for Europe tomorrow. I already sold your beach cottage and your pickup truck. We needed the money. I'll explain later. Bye." The line went dead. Evelyn froze. She stared at the phone as if it had personally betrayed her. 45 years of motherhood, sacrifice, and unconditional love, reduced to a two-sentence phone call. She felt the sting, the humiliation, and then unexpectedly calm. A calm she hadn't felt since her husband Thomas died 6 months earlier. What Melissa didn't know, what Evelyn herself had almost forgotten, would change everything. 3 days before his sudden heart attack, Thomas handed Evelyn a manila envelope. "Put this away," he had told her. "Open it when the time feels right." After the funeral, grief swallowed her. She forgot the envelope completely. But now, sitting alone in the clinic, with her daughter's cruel call echoing in her mind, the memory returned like lightning. The nurse called her name, but Evelyn was barely present during the appointment. The doctor praised her health for her age, encouraged rest and good meals. Evelyn nodded politely, but her mind was already home, already in her bedroom, already reaching for that manila envelope. She took the bus back since, according to Melissa, she no longer had a car. The irony made her smile softly. When she reached her house, she went straight to her dresser. There it was. The envelope Thomas had left for her. Big, heavy, and filled with secrets. Evelyn's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were property deeds, bank statements, investment certificates, and a handwritten letter from Thomas. "My dear Evelyn, you are far richer than you know." He had invested in 7 different properties, several businesses, and long-term stocks worth more than she could have imagined. The apartment building Melissa lived in? Thomas had secretly owned it for 10 years. And now everything belonged to Evelyn. Her daughter thought she had stripped her mother of everything. But Melissa had no idea that her mother now owned almost everything she touched. And Evelyn wasn't going to reveal that, not yet. The next morning, Evelyn woke feeling strangely steady, almost lighter. She made herself a cup of tea, sat by the window, and watched the neighborhood come alive. Dogs barked, kids rode bikes, sprinklers ticked rhythmically across manicured lawns. Life moved on even when people didn't deserve it. Her phone rang again. "Melissa." "Mom," she began with a sigh carefully disguised as concern. "Just wanted to update you. Brian and I transferred your share from the house and the truck. It's not a lot, but it'll help you, get a smaller place." "My share?" Evelyn asked. "Yes," Melissa said quickly. "We kept 70%. We need the money for Brian's business venture in Europe. But we made sure you got 30%. That's fair, right?" Fair. The word nearly made Evelyn laugh. They had sold her beach cottage for half its value, and her husband's cherished truck for almost nothing. And Melissa thought Evelyn should be grateful. "How long will you be gone?" Evelyn asked calmly. 6 months. Maybe more. But when we get back, we'll help you find a tiny apartment that suits your situation. Your situation. As if she were a helpless old woman with no means. "All right, honey," Evelyn said, voice steady. "Safe travels." "We love you, Mom," Melissa chirped before hanging up. Evelyn placed the phone down and finally let out the laugh she'd been holding. Not a bitter laugh. An amused one. Almost joyful. The absurdity was too much. Her daughter had robbed her, discarded her, and spoken to her with a level of condescension that would have made a stranger flinch. Yet Evelyn wasn't angry. She was awakened. She opened her laptop and checked the bank transfer. It was pathetic but predictable. Melissa and Brian wanted fast cash, not fair compensation. On her kitchen table, Thomas's documents lay neatly organized. She touched them gently. Then she made her first move. She called the family lawyer, Mr. Whitman, a man Thomas had trusted for decades. "Mrs. Carter," he said warmly. How can I help you? I need to meet with you, Evelyn replied. As soon as possible. Come tomorrow morning. I'll clear my schedule. After hanging up, Evelyn felt a rush of resolve. She cleaned the table, washed her teacup, and walked to her front porch. For years she had been soft, forgiving, patient. Now she would be something else. Melissa believed her mother had nothing left. But Evelyn Carter was about to take back everything, quietly, legally, and with a grace her daughter never understood. The next morning, Evelyn dressed with more intention than she had in months. She chose a navy blue blouse. Thomas used to say it made her look like a woman who knows exactly what she's doing. She brushed her hair, applied a light shade of lipstick, and looked at herself in the mirror. For the first time in a long while, she recognized the woman staring back. Mr. Whitman's office was on the 4th floor of an older brick building downtown. When Evelyn stepped inside, he greeted her with the warm professionalism Thomas had always trusted. "What can I do for you, Mrs. Carter?" he asked, guiding her to a seat. Evelyn placed the manila envelope on his desk. "I need you to review these." As Mr. Whitman flipped through the documents, his eyebrows lifted higher with each page. "Mrs. Carter," he said finally, "your husband was a remarkably smart investor. You are the sole owner of substantial assets. Real estate, businesses, stocks. This is a sizable fortune." Evelyn nodded calmly. "I understand that now. What I need to know is my legal position." "Well," he said, adjusting his glasses, "first, the sale of your beach cottage is completely invalid. Your daughter had no ownership rights. We can reverse it immediately." "Good," Evelyn replied. "Do it quietly. I don't want Melissa or Brian to know." Mr. Whitman blinked, surprised but respectful. "Of course. Anything else?" "Yes. I want control transferred directly to me for all properties under Thomas's holding company, including the apartment building where Melissa lives." "That's entirely possible," he said. "It will take a few weeks, but legally everything is already yours." "Excellent." As he continued reviewing the documents, Evelyn noticed his expression shift. "Is something wrong?" she asked. "Not wrong," he said slowly, "but your son-in-law has several outstanding debts, large ones." He used the apartment address as collateral, not knowing he wasn't the owner. Evelyn felt a cold, sharp understanding settle over her. "And when the banks realize the building isn't his?" Mr. Whitman sighed. "They'll come after the next responsible party, which could be your daughter." Evelyn nodded. This was what she expected. This was why she needed control now. She stood with a quiet strength. "Mr. Whitman, handle everything. Recover the cottage. Reclaim what's mine. Secure the building. And please, keep my name out of all correspondence." "Of course," he said. "But may I ask your intention?" Evelyn looked out the window at the busy street below. "My daughter chose to treat me like I was nothing," she said softly. "Now she's going to discover exactly who she underestimated." And with that, Evelyn Carter walked out of the office, not as a victim, but as a woman finally stepping into her power. Over the next few weeks, Evelyn lived a life split neatly into two identities. By day, she was the town's quiet widow, the woman everyone pitied. Neighbors stopped her on the sidewalk, offering casseroles and soft, sympathetic smiles. Evelyn thanked them gently, playing the part perfectly. Her daughter had abandoned her, after all. She was expected to look fragile. But by afternoon she transformed. She sat at her kitchen table with neatly labeled folders, highlighters, and legal documents spread before her. Mr. Whitman called regularly with updates. Each call strengthened her quiet resolve. On a Wednesday, he phoned with the news she had been waiting for. "Mrs. Carter, the sale of the beach cottage has been reversed. It is fully yours again." Evelyn closed her eyes, picturing the cream-colored cottage and the wooden porch where she and Thomas had watched sunsets for decades. "Thank you, Mr. Whitman. And as for the apartment building, we've nearly completed the administrative transfer. You will have full, direct ownership soon." "Excellent. Keep going." After hanging up, Evelyn felt the strange thrill of justice. Not revenge, not cruelty, justice. Melissa had stripped her of everything, believing her mother was powerless. But Evelyn now controlled more than Melissa ever imagined. Still, she kept her secret. Later that afternoon, Evelyn visited the beach cottage. She took the bus, not wanting to raise suspicion by hiring a driver or arriving in anything expensive. The cottage looked exactly as she'd remembered it. Warm, nostalgic, filled with memories. But when she sat across the street to admire it, an older man emerged from the house and noticed her. "Ma'am, are you all right?" he asked. "Yes," Evelyn replied softly. "I'm just remembering. We bought this place a few weeks ago," the man said. "But the sale got reversed. Apparently, the daughter didn't have the right to sell it. Poor woman, her mother was very sick, they said." Evelyn felt a sharp twist in her chest. Melissa had lied. Again. She told the buyers that Evelyn was mentally and physically declining, that she could no longer manage property affairs. She had painted her mother as a helpless burden to justify the sale. The man shook his head. Such a sad situation. Sad, yes, but not in the way he thought. When Evelyn returned home, she sat quietly with a cup of tea, letting the betrayal settle. Her daughter hadn't just stolen from her. She had erased her dignity. That evening, she called Mr. Whitman. "I want Thomas's truck back too," she said. "That may be more difficult," he warned. "Your daughter had power of attorney. She may have deceived you into signing it." "I remember," Evelyn said, sadness flickering. "But do whatever you must. I want everything she took returned." And so, piece by piece, Evelyn Carter rebuilt the empire her daughter had tried to steal, determined that when the moment came, Melissa would see the full weight of her choices. The days that followed were some of the strangest Evelyn had ever lived. In the eyes of the neighborhood, she was still the abandoned widow, grocery shopping on foot, carrying small bags, smiling politely at sympathetic looks. But behind closed doors, she was a strategist, quietly reclaiming everything Melissa had taken from her. Every afternoon, Mr. Whitman updated her. "Mrs. Carter," he said one Friday, "I have good news. We secured the return of Thomas's truck." Evelyn inhaled. "How?" "The buyer is someone I know. When I explained your situation, without mentioning Melissa, he agreed to return it for a fair reimbursement." "Thank you," she said, voice steady. One more piece of her life restored. But what mattered most now wasn't property or money. It was timing. Melissa had been gone for 3 weeks. Not a text. Not a call. Not even a postcard. Until the neighborhood grapevine delivered the first crack in Melissa's perfect escape. Mrs. Ramirez, her warm but nosy neighbor of 30 years, arrived at Evelyn's porch nearly breathless. "Evelyn, did you hear?" she whispered dramatically. "The bank is investigating Brian." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Is that so?" "He took out several loans using their apartment for collateral. But he's not the owner. Whoever is the owner is about to have a big problem dropped on them." Evelyn fought a smile. "I am the owner. And that's not all," Mrs. Ramirez continued eagerly. "People are saying Melissa didn't know anything. She thought Brian was successful, but he's drowning in debt." Evelyn placed her teacup down. "Poor Melissa. She's going to learn the truth sooner than she thinks." Mrs. Ramirez nodded sagely. "Life teaches lessons, Evelyn. Sometimes the hard way." The next day, Mr. Whitman called early morning. "Mrs. Carter," he said carefully, "your daughter is at the airport. Alone." "Alone?" "Yes. Brian stayed in Europe. Word is they had a terrible fight." Evelyn's heart didn't leap with joy, nor did it break. She simply felt ready. "And about the eviction notice," he continued. "I delivered it to Melissa's apartment building today. She received it in person." "Perfect. How long does she have?" Evelyn asked. 30 days. When she hung up, Evelyn stared out her kitchen window as sunlight touched the rim of her garden. For the first time, she felt no fear. No hesitation. Melissa had left her without looking back. Now she would be returning to a mother she believed was powerless. only to discover Evelyn Carter had been holding all the power all along. And Evelyn was about to let her daughter face reality. One step at a time. Melissa returned like a ghost of herself. Evelyn didn't see it with her. How was Europe? Mom, please. I got an eviction notice. I don't understand what's happening. I need your help. Evelyn kept her tone gentle. Come over, honey. I'm home. An hour later, Melissa stood on her doorstep. Broken, uncertain. Gone were the expensive clothes, the glossy hair, the confident attitude. She looked like someone who'd been running from a life that had finally caught up to her. Mom, she said, voice cracking.
Come in, sweetheart.
I'll make coffee. In the kitchen, Melissa looked small, like the child who used to sit there after school, confessing playground mistakes. Mom, everything is falling apart, she whispered. Brian, he left me. Ran off with some girl in Paris. There was no business deal. No investment. Just lies. Evelyn listened quietly. And the debts? Melissa's voice broke. He used my name on some of the loans. The banks think I'm responsible. And now this eviction notice. I don't understand any of it. Have you spoken to a lawyer? Evelyn asked. I can't afford one, Mom, Melissa said, tears spilling. I spent the rest of the money in Europe, and Brian took what was left. So what do you plan to do? Evelyn asked softly. Melissa looked down, ashamed. I was hoping. Maybe I could stay here for a while. Just until I figure out what to do. If that's okay. There it was. The moment Evelyn had been waiting for. Not to punish her daughter, but to let her see. Of course, honey, Evelyn said gently. This will always be your home. Melissa broke and finally sobbed in her mother's arms. Evelyn held her, but her heart was no longer naive. She wasn't rescuing the girl who betrayed her. She was guiding the woman who needed to rebuild herself. And the rebuilding had only just begun. Melissa settled into her old bedroom, the one with the faded blue wallpaper and the window that faced the maple tree. She unpacked slowly, moving like someone afraid of breaking the air around her. Evelyn watched from the doorway, not judging, not comforting, just observing. Over the next days, she saw things in her daughter she hadn't seen in years. Humility, effort, and the quiet kind of remorse that doesn't need words. Melissa got a part-time cleaning job at an office building. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't easy, but it was honest. And for the first time, she didn't complain. She came home with sore feet and tired eyes, but a growing dignity Evelyn had never seen in her before. One evening, while Melissa was organizing piles of debt notices on the kitchen table, Evelyn received a call from Mr. Whitman. Mrs. Carter, we found evidence. Strong evidence. Brian forged Melissa's signature on multiple loans. We can legally clear her of all responsibility. The process is nearly complete. Good, Evelyn said quietly. Let me decide when she learns that. She hung up and turned to her daughter, who was holding a handful of bills, trying to calculate how long it would take her to pay off debts that weren't even hers. Mom, Melissa whispered. How am I ever going to fix any of this? Step by step, Evelyn replied. You start by facing it. Melissa nodded, swallowing her fear. Over the next few weeks, Evelyn watched her daughter transform. She no longer sought shortcuts, excuses, or easy ways out. She apologized genuinely. Not with words alone, but with effort, gratitude, and actions. Then came the moment Evelyn had been waiting for. Melissa, she said one morning, I made an appointment with a lawyer. Someone who might help. Melissa's hands trembled. Mom, thank you. They went to Mr. Whitman's office. Melissa sat stiffly, bracing for more bad news, but instead she received freedom. Mr. Whitman slid a folder toward her. Miss Carter, you are legally cleared of all debts. You were a victim of fraud. You owe nothing. Melissa looked stunned. But who, how? Evelyn spoke calmly. Your father made sure we'd always be protected. And I made sure his protections worked. Melissa's eyes filled. Mom, all this time you knew? You could have fixed everything. Yes, Evelyn answered softly. But you needed to learn what you couldn't see before. Melissa broke into tears. Not the desperate kind, but the healing kind. Do you forgive me? She whispered. Evelyn touched her daughter's cheek. I already did. Months later, Melissa continued her job, began taking classes, and grew into someone Thomas would have been proud of. Evelyn funded a women's support foundation, inspired by her daughter's struggle. And every evening they sat together on the porch, two women who had walked through fire and come out better, not burned. Evelyn had saved her daughter, not by rescuing her, but by letting her rise.